In this video, we will delve deep into the shocking royal manners that were once considered normal. Throughout history, the royal families of the world have been known for their grandeur, elegance, and luxury, but some of the manners that they used to practice would be considered shocking and unacceptable by today's standards. First, let's take a look at the practice of foot binding. This was a custom that was prevalent in China during the Ming and Qing dynasties, and it involved tightly binding the feet of young girls to prevent them from growing. This was considered a sign of beauty and elegance, as it was believed that small feet were a symbol of wealth and nobility. However, this practice caused a great deal of pain and suffering for the girls who had to endure it, and it was eventually banned in the early 20th century. Another shocking royal manner that was once considered normal was the practice of human sacrifice. This was a common practice among many ancient cultures and was considered an act of devotion to the gods. The Aztecs, Mayans, and Incas, for example, would sacrifice humans to appease their gods and ensure a bountiful harvest. This practice was considered normal and acceptable at the time, but it would be considered barbaric and inhumane today. Moving on, let's talk about the practice of seclusion. Royal women in many cultures were expected to live in seclusion, spending most of their lives inside their palaces or homes. They were not allowed to leave their homes, except for special occasions and ceremonies. This was considered a sign of nobility and respectability, but it also meant that they were not allowed to have any contact with the outside world. This practice was prevalent in many cultures, including in the Ottoman Empire, where the women of the harem were isolated from the rest of the world. In addition, in the medieval era, in Europe, royal women would spend most of their time in convents, where they would spend their time in religious studies and activities. Another shocking royal manner that was once considered normal was the practice of arranged marriages. Royal families would often arrange marriages for their children to form alliances with other royal families or to secure political power. This practice was seen as necessary to preserve the royal bloodline and to ensure the continuation of the dynasty. However, this practice often led to marriages between children who had never met before and had no feelings for each other, which would be considered unacceptable today. Moreover, in some cultures, such as in the Indian subcontinent, the practice of child marriages were prevalent among the royal families, where young girls were married off to much older men as part of political alliances. Furthermore, let's take a look at the practice of royal incest. Incest, or sexual relations between close family members, was considered normal and acceptable among the royal families in the past. The Egyptian pharaohs were known for marrying their siblings, and in ancient Rome, incestuous relationships between emperors and their sisters were not uncommon. The Habsburg dynasty, one of the most prominent royal families of Europe, had a history of intermarriage among its members, which led to the prevalence of genetic disorders among its members. This practice was considered normal and necessary to preserve the royal bloodline, but it would be considered unacceptable and morally reprehensible today. In addition to these practices, another shocking royal manner that was once considered normal was the practice of eunuch slavery. Eunuchs, men who were castrated, were highly sought after by the royal families as they were considered trustworthy and efficient servants. They were used as guards, attendants, and even high-ranking officials. This practice was prevalent in many cultures, including in China and the Ottoman Empire. However, this practice was not only inhumane and degrading, but it also resulted in the loss of personal autonomy and freedom for the individuals who were forced to become eunuchs. In conclusion, throughout history, the royal families of the world have been known for their grandeur, elegance, and luxury, but some of the manners that they used to practice would be considered shocking and unacceptable by today's standards. From foot binding to human sacrifice, from seclusion to arranged marriages, and from incest to eunuch slavery, these practices were considered normal and acceptable at the time, but they would be considered inhumane and morally reprehensible today. It's important to remember that what is considered normal and acceptable changes over time, and it's important to always question and challenge the status quo. Thanks for watching. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more interesting content on history and culture.